Hello and welcome to the 3D Blu-ray Bunker. This is a place for us die-hard fans of 3D whose interest in the quality of the 3D can sometimes exceed our interest in the quality of the film itself. We exclusively look at 3D Blu-rays and within that niche almost entirely focus on the quality of the 3D on offer. The assumption is that you'll already know about the film from your favourite reviewer, but unlike most reviews which take a detailed look at the film with a short comment at the end about the 3D, here we do things the other way around. And hopefully by the end you'll have a better idea about whether this one might be worth adding to your 3D collection. I'll be putting up some stills from the film, obviously in 2D here, so what follows might contain some minor visual spoilers, but nothing serious. Today we're looking at Mortal Engines on the UK disc. The aspect ratio is 2.39 to 1, and like virtually all 3D films of the past few years, this one was post-converted rather than natively shot in 3D. And whilst that certainly doesn't guarantee it will be good, it also doesn't automatically suggest that it'll be bad. It all depends on the quality of the planning and execution. So, how well planned and executed is Mortal Engines 3D? The production design of the film very clearly suggests to me that serious consideration was given to 3D right from the beginning, and having well-known 3D enthusiast Peter Jackson as a producer also suggests that 3D was an important element all along. Throughout the film, it's apparent that we're in big-budget territory with massive visuals and tons of detail in both interiors and exteriors, and the money's absolutely up on the screen, and the frame is almost always packed with information from the foreground to the background. If you've seen the film in 2D already, and you know how good 3D can look, you can probably imagine how excellent this could look in 3D. But I'm not convinced that it ever really does. So on the plus side, there are literally only one or two shots in the film that look flat, this landscape shot being one of them with no discernible hint of depth in it. And in fairness, it looks as flat as it would do in reality. Distances like this simply can't be seen in 3D by the human eye. In 3D films, however, especially post-converted ones, they can be seen in as much 3D as the filmmakers want them to be seen in. As always, when giving an opinion on any aspect of a film, I have to keep in mind that the large number of creative talents involved spent weeks, months and even years thinking about their vision, so for me to spend about half an hour thinking about it and claiming to know better is obviously ridiculous. However, my point stands that this shot looks flat when it could have had some depth, and my preference is for depth in a 3D film. I think I just started then by saying on the plus side and then quickly switched to offer a criticism. So back to the plus side of things, as I was saying, almost every shot of the film is clearly in 3D. So it's not one of those films where you sometimes find yourself wondering if what you're seeing is 3D or flat. So that's all good, and some of the shots have plenty of depth. And with this film it is depth rather than pop out where its 3D emphasis lies. The trees here are nicely solid, and like the previous landscape shot, in reality you wouldn't see much 3D in a view like this, so they were prepared to push the effect in a few sequences and accept a bit of the miniaturization effect that's a byproduct of doing that. Overall though, the depth is never quite as strong as I'd like it to be, and by that I mean that I know from what's been done with many other films how good it could look, it's just that it rarely does. So for the most part I'd say it's good 3D, but it's never great. Literally, there's not one shot in the film that gave me that stereoscopic thrill, that wow factor that the really great 3D films can give you. The closest to that was this one shot that I really liked, where it went quite hyper stereo. This is one of those shots that's very difficult to make sense of visually in 2D, especially if the camera isn't moving, which in this case it is, and it's a fantastic example of how the separation offered by 3D can bring a huge amount of clarity to a shot and make sense of it. So whilst the design of the film suggests that 3D was a major consideration, quite often the shooting and editing style suggests that it wasn't cared about so much. Several action scenes suffer from fast cutting and a bit of shaky cam, which is a style of filmmaking that's not at all suited to 3D. On the pop-out side of things, there's nothing to get overly excited by. Here's a fairly standard pointy gun shot. It's not the only one of those in the film, incidentally, but the gun is out of focus and it's breaking the frame, so it isn't particularly effective. As before, it's fine, it's just not special. This channel that's been carved out by a gigantic vehicle could have had a far more dramatic amount of depth than it's been given, and for me, this conservative approach goes on throughout the film. This shot looks like it could be spectacular, but again it disappoints. When I say that it disappoints, I mean that whilst it probably looks correct, it doesn't do anything interesting with 3D. These buildings may have been left almost completely flat as an artistic choice, or possibly because their complexity meant that it would probably have been a huge amount of work to build a decent depth map for them. And these guns would have been far simpler to convert to 3D than the buildings, but it's a similar story. And yes, there's a perceptible amount of depth there, like with these flying machines here, but it's only enough to let you know that it certainly is three-dimensional, just not excitingly so. It's all certainly beautiful imagery, with what I have to assume is exactly the amount of 3D that the filmmakers felt was correct. It's just not enough for it to ever dazzle. So what I've said so far mostly sounds more negative than it ought to, I think, so I need to emphasise that the film does offer solid 3D from start to finish, and I'd far rather watch this in 3D than 2D, but what it doesn't do is anything really exceptional, which is a shame given the opportunity that I think it had to do so. And I think it's fair to say that Stereo D, who did the conversion, has done deeper work on other films. So, to end, just a very quick word on the film itself. I think this one was probably doomed to fail as soon as people heard that it was about giant cities on wheels roaming a future landscape, eating up other cities on wheels, and that's probably about as much as most people had to hear before they decided to pass on this one. And leaving aside that slightly implausible premise, I found enough good stuff in the film to enjoy it. The characters were fine, some of them reasonably engaging, and it definitely looked spectacular, and the story progressed and unfolded in a satisfying enough way. All in all, to collectors of 3D Blu-rays, I'd say this deserves a place in your collection, but you may find yourself like me just wishing that the 3D had been pushed a little bit harder. So I hope you found this in some way useful, and if so, I hope you'll join me in the bunker again soon for another 3D Blu-ray review. Until then, thanks for looking in on this one. Cheers for now. Bye bye.